to my workshop. In this video I'm going to show you how to mould leather. Now this is quite an interesting technique and can be used to make all kinds of bags and holsters and anything like that. Something where you want something to keep a definite shape. It creates something which is remarkably strong. If you go back to ancient Rome and you look at some of the records there, you will see that armour in its very earliest forms was made out of moulded leather. Now the tools you need to do this are remarkably simple. The first thing that you need is something to mould. So what I'm going to be making is a bag in order to take an iPad. So I've cut myself a piece of ply which is slightly bigger than the iPad. I've beveled off the edges, I've rounded the corners. I have a base plate. I've now made a frame which is slightly bigger than the piece we're going to mould round. And so there's about a 3mm gap either side, just big enough to get our piece of leather through, and then we need some G-clamps. And the last thing we need is a bit of wet leather. So I have here a piece of wet leather. It's been soaking in water for about 20 minutes, so it's reasonably pliable. And obviously with leather you have a face side and a flesh side, so you put the flesh side down onto the piece you're trying to mould, line it up at the top, start putting some G-clamps around it. And that, as they say, is all there is to it. As you can see, that's now held in place quite firmly. And so we're going to leave that to dry. It will take 3 or 4 days in a warm place. And we just leave it, and then it'll come back in a couple of days' time, and then we'll take it out of the mould. Now while we wait for the leather in the mould to dry, there's 1 or 2 bits and pieces we can be getting on with. And the first thing we're going to do is to make the strap which is going to go on the front of the bag, which holds the buckle in place, which will hold it all together. So I've cut myself a piece of leather, I've stitch marked it, I put a crease down the side and I put a slot in it as well. And this all fits together like this. And as you can see, we have the start of a buckle. But the one bit we are going to need is a little keep, which is then going to get sewn in like that. So there you go, we now have ourselves a nice little strap with a buckle on the end of it. Yeah, that will fit. So that will then be able to fit through there, and as you can see, that's the kind of buckle that we're after. The next step is to do exactly the same thing on a much bigger scale, with a much bigger buckle, because now we're going to make a strap to go up and over the top of the bag. So as you can see, we've now made the bottom part of the strap, which is going to go up and over around the body. Now that attaches to the back of the bag using one of these square rings like that. So what we now need to do is to cut in here and here and here and here. And you have to do that ever so carefully using a saddler's knife. So as you can see, I've now taken our piece of leather out of the mould. It's quite solid, and once that dries out completely, that will be very hard. So you can see why they did used to make armour out of it. It's got the shape that we need, so I now need to trim off the bits and pieces that I don't need. So I'm going to quickly mark an edge trim this to size. So there we are, there's our finished front of our bag. Now we do need to put our little strap on the front there, so we'll get that sewn into place first of all. So there you go, by the magic of video, plus the fact watching me stitching is probably the most boring video you could probably get, we've now manufactured the bag. I've stitched all the way around the edge onto the back, and I've also put a little strap there. And that, as far as the bag bit is going, is completed. The next part is to put the strap on the back. Now I've already made the start of the strap. So that will then get stitched onto there, and then we'll make the rest of the strap. So there you go, that's the completed bag. I think you'll agree that's not bad. The technique of moulding there is quite a versatile technique, and you can use it for all kinds of bags, holsters, anything like that. Very good for tool belts. Ideally you don't want to go more than about 75mm in that direction, but you can do some fairly big stuff, and it works very well, and it will last forever, particularly if you made it out of a decent bit of leather and you've sewn it properly. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that video. Hopefully you've learned something. If you're interested in buying one of these bags, you can contact me via my website, and the address is at the bottom of the screen at the moment. Thanks for watching. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, do have a look at the other videos on my channel. Hopefully you might find them interesting.